At Team Toyota, they've been selling and servicing new and used Toyotas in your community for over 50 years. And you can reserve your next new Toyota with them today. You'll get a realistic timeline, and even in this crazy market, they won't charge you over MSRP. Or don't wait at all. With over 75 certified Toyotas, including a bunch of RAV4 and Highlanders, you can drive one home today. And you can always trust them to maintain your current vehicle. Their service and collision centers are high-tech, comfortable, and will save you time and money. Team Toyota can help you go anywhere you want, but they'll always be your hometown team. Just visit teamtoyota.net and choose from 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton. Hello, folks, and welcome to a special July 4th edition of the Phillies Talk podcast, presented by Team Toyota. I'm Corey Seidman. He's Jim Salisbury. And though the Phillies are off on July 4th for the first time in many, many years, we do have a podcast for you coming off of that series win at home against the Cardinals. So, Jim, the Phils take 2 out of 3 against one of the teams they're chasing in the wild card race, the team that currently occupies the third and final National League playoff spots. The Phils are just 1.5 games back. They've won 7 of their last 9 series, and this was one of their highest quality series wins of the season, given the toughness of the opponent.
Yeah, and given the fact that Nolan Arenado is, hotter than the face of the sun. What a ball player. I love watching that guy on both sides of the ball. Great defender. Ironically, made an error the other night that was kind of an iffy error that led to actually, he did make an error. What did it lead to? 2 runs? I forget. I have to go back and look. But he doesn't make many errors, and he's just a joy to watch. And he competes so hard too. He brings that your offense, defense, and his competitiveness is off the charts. But hell of a series win for the Phillies against a team they're chasing. As you mentioned, picked up a game on them in the wild card race, and got some good pitching. Got some continued quality bullpen work, and Rhys Hoskins continues to do big damage. I mean, his last 31 games, he's hitting .324 with a 1091 OPS, 9 home runs, 18 RBIs. So we have seen it before. I don't know why. I mean, it just seems like when this team really goes good, Rhys is going good now. Logic dictates when your players play good, you win more ball games. But there seems to be a direct correlation to Rhys's performance to the Phillies' overall team performance, and that just makes sense. He's he's been hitting 2, but generally a middle of the order guy, comes up with runners on base, and he's doing big damage. So really good to see. Interesting homestand with the arrival of Derek Hall, they're facing, to me, though, a little bit of a challenge here, a little bit of maybe crisis, because 2 starting pitchers now are on the IL in Eflin and Ranger Suarez. What did you hear about Suarez last night?
Yeah, Ranger Suarez went on the IL Sunday evening just before the game with a low back spasm. It was backdated 2 days, which would allow the Phillies to get him back in their final series before the All-Star break, but we'll see. The issue is right now they're down, as you said, 40% of their starting rotation. Suarez on the IL with the back spasm, Zach Eflin with the right knee bruise. Suarez was supposed to start Tuesday's series opener against the Nationals. Instead, that assignment will go to Christopher Sanchez, the lefty who is at AAA, who's been extended out to 58 pitches as they're stretching him out to start. So not a good spot for the Phils, Jim. We've talked about how they can't afford to lose one member of the rotation. Now they're down 2. Yeah. We got a lot of questions that we're going to get to later in the podcast, but a bunch of them are about, could they trade for a starting pitcher given how thin their depth is in that spot?
Yeah, so you're going to have on Tuesday, you're going to have Christopher Sanchez, right?
Yes.
And on Thursday, I'm just kind of looking at my notes, you're going to have Falter, I guess, again. 2 guys that spent the bulk of the year in AAA. These are the problems that good teams absorb and good teams get through, because good teams generally go deeper than 5 in their starting rotation. You have to go 6, 7, 8 deep. So when you have a breakdown, you can reach down to AAA and not have a huge drop-off. So big challenge for Christopher Sanchez, who's going to get at least a couple starts. Bailey Falter, who we don't know how long he's going to be in this rotation. I mean, I don't know how long Eflin's going to be out. I mean, last year he went down about this same time, and it was like just it's just going to be a few starts, and he never came back. I mean, the good news is they say it's not the patella tendon. That they think they can get the swelling and pain out of there, and he'll be back. But I mean,
The fat pad, right?
Yeah, and I looked it up. It really is a term, and if you kind of sit down and have your knee, if you're sitting with your leg at a 45-degree angle, and you take your two fingers and you can kind of push it around your patella tendon that comes under your patella, goes down to your I guess the bone in your shin bone, top of your shin bone. So that little kind of feels like a little cavity there where you push with your two fingers, and you got a little cushion, a little padding there. I mean, that it has a name. It's some guy's name, fat pad, and it provides cushion around that area. And his is inflamed. He twisted it in Milwaukee almost a month ago now. So they need Zach Eflin back because we've, like you said, we've talked about this a lot, that they only go 5 deep. And this was sort of this troubling scenario that's been in the back of my mind all season, that what if they have a breakdown in the rotation? How are they going to handle it? Well, now they got 2. They hope they're minor. They hope they can get through them. But that situation that I wondered about has come to pass because, they starting rotation has been very good, and they needed to. Falter and Sanchez are going to have to pick it up a little bit and carry some load. It's a good opportunity for both of them. Tell you what, if you're a competitor, if you want to be a major league pitcher, it's a hell of an opportunity to go out there and shine a little bit because they really need these guys. And Falter's done okay, but he's had some hiccups in the middle innings, especially against right-handed bats. And Thompson does not hesitate to get him out of there when the lineup turns meaty and right-handed. And now we got who do we got coming in? The Nationals? So
yeah, the Nationals, the Phillies have the next 3 against the Nationals, and they have a 4-game wraparound series in St. Louis against the Cardinals.
So he saw the Nationals last weekend. He's going to see them again. Josh Bell got him. He's just got to learn from it. And like I said, it's a really good opportunity for Bailey Falter. But Nola's been pitching really well. Wheeler's been pitching well. Gibson's had 2 tough ones in a row.
Well, I was going to mention that. So you're talking about how they're down, 2/5 of their starting rotation. They also have Kyle Gibson, who's given them a 6.82 ERA over his last 6 starts. He has not been pitching well. There are several of those games that he hasn't lasted long. I mean, I'm just looking at the game log here. 4 innings, 2 2/3, 3 1/3. So half of his last 6 starts, have been really short ones. They need him to be a lot better too. It's not just the guys replacing Eflin and Suarez. It's also someone like Gibson stepping up because right now, Zach Wheeler rolling, Aaron Nola is rolling. They just need to, they need more in the other games to be able to rest this bullpen a little bit more.
Yeah. We mentioned opportunity for Sanchez and Falter. Well, this is where, when you have breakdowns in your rotation, this is where a veteran pitcher needs to step up and say, I've been there, I've done that. I need to do it really good right now because my team really needs me. And you mentioned Gibson has, struggled a little bit here. He's the last 2, especially giving up a lot of 2-out runs early in games. He gave up those 4 straight home runs on Saturday. Hey, crazy stuff happens in this game. He mentioned that he thought a couple of the pitches were actually pretty good. Sliders sort of down and away. And, I went back and looked at the video, and indeed they were. Goldschmidt starts that rally with 2 outs in the first inning, kind of goes out and gets a pretty good slider away. And then Arenado hits a slider that was down and pretty much away for a home run. It was a flower pot special, but, he put good wood on it. And he generated a line drive over the short porch there in left field. Looking at those pitches, I just wonder if Kyle Gibson needs to start straightening up some of these right-handers a little bit and getting them off the plate a little bit. Come inside and put one right on their fingertips and get some of that inside corner back because that would help him when he goes away because it just seems like right-handed batters are pretty comfortable and it seems like they're diving a little bit. So I think that the way to maybe adjust that is to try to pitch in a little bit more in his next start. So he had mentioned that he needs to make some adjustments, and clearly he does, because they need him to really step up and carry a load here.
So, Jim, the Phils week ahead, they have 3 with the Nationals, who are 6-26 this season against the NL East, and then they have 4 at the Cardinals. The Nationals could be playing without Juan Soto in this series. He left Sunday's game with left calf tightness. He didn't do much in the 5-game series 2 weeks ago, but obviously he's their best player, one of the most dangerous hitters in all of the National League. So that's what the Phils have coming up ahead this week. But we asked you guys on Twitter to just hit us with a bunch of questions, big picture or not, pertaining to the Phillies. Jim, you want to run through some here?
Say that again about the Nationals and Soto, because one of our internets was a little shaky. So say that again.
Sorry about that if that was me. Yeah, the Nationals, who are 6-26 this season against the National League East, could be without their best player this week because Juan Soto left Sunday's game with left calf tightness. He was set to be reevaluated today. The Nationals have a game against the Marlins before the 3-game series with the Phillies. But even though Soto didn't do much 2 weeks ago when the Phillies played the Nats 5 times, obviously their best player, the NL MVP runner-up last season, and even on a down year like this, he has a .382 on base percentage with 15 more walks and strikeouts. So that will be a break for the Phillies if they can avoid him.
Yeah, and even if they can't avoid him, you have to avoid him because he's the bat in that lineup that can really hurt you, right? I mean, Josh Bell's having a nice year too, and he did hurt the Phillies down there in DC previous weekend. But don't let Soto beat you, and if he's not in there, they did a good job making hay against the Nationals, winning 4 or 5 in the last series. They need to keep the pedal to the metal here. They're Phillies are 4-3 without Harper. That's good. That's good. Harper's actually going to speak to the assembled group of reporters on Tuesday and give a little update about where he is. Interested to hear what he says post-surgery. I think in the back of his mind, he thinks he can be back helping in late August. So I'm sure the Phillies have their fingers crossed about that, but I'm curious to hear exactly, what Harper has to say on Tuesday.
No doubt. So let's get to some questions that we polled for on Twitter. This one comes from, well, we got a bunch of these ones, but start with this one from Jared Mercer. Jim, over under 3 Phillies deadline deals. The number is 3, over under. What do you think?
Wow.
You're a betting man.
I'm not really a betting man. Well, that's a tough question because, you could have little deals, you know what I mean? They make little deals at the minor league level all the time. I guess I would probably say under. I could see them making a couple deals. Do I think they need to make 2, 3, or 4? Probably, but you have limited trade capital. You have guys you're going to try to protect. It's hard to make trades because it takes 2 to tango, and you have other teams that are in it. But they have some definite needs. I think bullpen's a need, and starting rotation now may very well be a need. Starting depth, and I still believe outfield, maybe a left-handed bat, somebody who can help mitigate the loss of Harper, and also give you a defensive upgrade in the outfield, which I think is much needed. That could be a possibility too. So I said under, but I could see them making a decent deal and maybe a couple smaller ones that get you to 3. I just don't know how it's going to shake out.
Well, the other aspect of it is that, while they have a bunch of needs, they could fill multiple needs with one deal. Like last season, for example, bringing in Kyle Gibson and Ian Kennedy in the same trade, getting a starter and a reliever. There could be options like that. I mean, one that kind of sticks out is like the Cincinnati Reds, who have a lot of good individual pieces, even though they're going to lose 100 games. I look at like Tyler Mahle, the starting pitcher, who has a lot of value, big strikeout stuff. They have a guy like Brandon Drury who can play different positions and has had a powerful bat this season. So if they can fill multiple holes with one trade, that might, affect the number of trades that they do.
No question. There are a few teams like that. I mean, Arizona has a left-handed bat in Peralta. I don't know if the Phillies have any interest, but they also have a reliever in Melanson. I don't know if the Phillies have any interest. A guy like Ian Happ and David Robertson with the Cubs could be a package. And Pittsburgh, obviously, with Reynolds and their bullpen, there could be a package there too. I don't know if the Phillies are pursuing anything with those teams, but I'm just kind of using it as an example. Certainly, those teams, I think, would be clubs the Phillies would talk to because, they have personnel that I think that would help. But the Reds are definitely a team. They have guys in the rotation and in the bullpen that could and in the lineup that could possibly help the Phillies. So we're at July 4th now, 28 days, I guess, if my math is right, 28, 29 days from the deadline. So we'll see.
Got a lot of questions like asking who are some logical or realistic starting pitcher trade options. A few that I'd mention, Mahle of the Reds, Luis Castillo of the Reds. Frankie Montas has been a name that's been mentioned all year, but he did leave his start early yesterday with a shoulder injury, which is certainly going to affect his market the rest of the month if he has to miss time. You have a couple guys on the Cubs like Kyle Hendricks and Marcus Stroman. There's Martin Perez, who's having a career year for the Rangers. Any other names that jump out to you, Jim?
Those Reds guys are very interesting, but I don't know what it's going to cost to take them, to get them. The Phillies going to be protective of their arms. I kind of look at this with the way Nola and Gibson, Nola and Wheeler are pitching. I think you need like a marginal upgrade, like going back to the Joe Blanton pickup and even the Kyle Gibson pickup last year, something of that ilk. Because I think, like I said, I just don't think look, who wouldn't love Frankie Montas? But, I'm just not sure the cost there. Is Martin Perez really available in Texas? He'd be a nice one. But they just have multiple needs across the board. So I think you have to be creative and spread things out because they're not going to start depleting the prospect stock that they're starting to build here. I mean, they might have to give up something, and they probably end up will, but we'll see.
So one of the players that's been mentioned as a possible, prospect going out in a Phillies trade is catcher Logan O'Hoppe, who's kind of turned into one of their best position player prospects, maybe their best position player prospect. This question comes from John Bridgens, who asks, how close is Logan O'Hoppe to being a major league regular? And is there any chance that the Phillies could opt instead to trade JT Realmuto in the offseason? At first glance, seem unlikely. Realmuto has the big contract. He has not performed up to it since signing that contract. And, if you even think about trading him, you might have to eat some money in that deal. And then you start asking yourself, is it even worth it? So what do you think?
Do I think they would ponder it and consider it? Absolutely. Especially if they felt like O'Hoppe was knocking on the door. But he's had a really good year in Double-A. That said, he hasn't played in more than a week. He's been ill. And before that, he had struggled for a couple of weeks. So as far as his big league readiness, I still think he needs time. I think it'd probably be a question we'd probably start pondering more in about a year. Now, I don't doubt he could come up here and fill a little bit of a breach if they had one. But they do have two other catchers on the 40-man roster, and Marchand and Donnie Sands. So I still think he's a ways away. He's had a good year at Reading. Big, tall kid. He's thrown a lot from his knees and been having some pretty good success with it. But he's got a real presence to him. He commands a game pretty well behind the plate. He's hit for some power. I watched a lot of videos of him, and he really, at Reading, and he murders a middle-in pitch. Just murders it. And it makes me wonder how he's going to handle stuff that's away, because he's kind of got a swing where he opens up a little bit with that front shoulder, and he lifts it a little bit rotational. So I do think there's probably things he needs to work on as a hitter, because as you move up, you're going to face guys with more precise location. They might be able to challenge you more outside and maybe give you some trouble. I think he might need to use the whole field, or work on using the whole field more to become a major league regular. But everybody says he projects to be a major league regular. All the people who see him, got a lot of great tools, good defender, really smart, presence, throws, coming along with the bat, having a nice year in AAA. So it looks like he's going to be a regular at some point. That said, could he be in play this July? I think he could be in play. I get the impression they're going to be more protective of some of their arms. So I guess he could be in play and catches a premium position, but he's an awfully nice prospect. He's having a kind of a breakthrough year. I would want to get more than just like a situational reliever. I'd want to get something decent for a guy like that.
Yeah, Jim. This one comes from Ben McCardle, who asks: is there any scenario where the Phillies trade Dede to get under the luxury tax? And again, that would be pretty difficult. I mean, Dede has no home runs this year, hasn't really struck the ball with authority. Right now, he's dealing with a knee issue, and he's going to be owed about $5 million after the deadline. So,
Yeah, I don't think
color me skeptical on that one.
there's a lot of teams that knocking down your door for Dede. Like you said, he hasn't hit. Um, he's been okay, I'd say, defensively, but he's had to, I think, adjust some of his range and throwing issues. By he gets around a lot of balls, throws a lot of balls off balance, so he gets some momentum behind his throws. I don't think there's a big market for him. As far as if they do fall out of it here, I do think they'll try to peddle some guys to try to get under the luxury tax, and maybe pay it next year when you maybe can make the playoffs. But I do think that's a scenario they would look at getting under if they fall out of this thing. But right now they're very, very much in it. I mean, they're only 7.5 back in the division. Now, I think it's going to be still a very large hill to climb, but we've seen it before at that very number, 7.5, in '07 with the Mets. But the Mets have a really interesting variable here. They're going to get 2 Cy Young winners back here in the short term, and they've done a really good job, staying where they are. I mean, the Braves have put a dent in it in their lead because the Braves have just been great. But to talk about 2 great pickups in July for a team, DeGrom and Scherzer.
Yeah, and beyond that too, if DeGrom and Scherzer come back and stay healthy, the Mets are probably going to be able to move Tyler McGill, who was so good early in the season, into the bullpen, and that would give them another back end bullpen arm that could really affect things late in games. Jim, given that it's July 4th, our boy Gelby checks in. Rank your 3 best July 4th barbecue side dishes. For me, number one's got to be baked beans. I'm a big baked beans guy. Love me some corn on the cob. I don't know if this is a side dish, probably more considered like a condiment, but I love sauerkraut. Like I'm really pounding my hot dog with sauerkraut. So those would be my answers. But what do you got?
Side dish, I like everything. I'm an equal opportunity fat guy. I like baked beans. Um, I like, side dish. I love corn on the cob. I mean, I actually got some yesterday, so I actually grill my corn. I soak it with the husks on for about 5 minutes, and I put it on the grill, and you cook it on the grill like till the husks almost look like meteors, and you got to be careful taking them off because they are hot. But it sort of steams and grills in there, and it really doesn't overcook because it has, it vents. But I would have that over like a boiled or a corn any day. I highly recommend grilling your corn like with a wet husk. But my favorite, this might be. I love peach cobbler. I love peach cobbler. That's a good one. Maybe so a dessert. But I do like baked beans. Um, I just love a good, big, drippy, ugly burger. Lettuce, tomato, mayo, pickles, onions, ketchup, whatever. Just give me one of those any day.
This is a question from me to you, Jim. Does it feel weird not to be covering a game on July 4th? I can't imagine you've had a lot of July 4ths
Yeah.
off over the last like 30 years, huh?
Yeah, it does. It does feel weird. July 4th is one of those days where I think there used to be double headers way back when. But yeah, it feels weird. But this with interleague and they have to and the scheduling, it just fell that way. Mondays, if you're going to get a day off, it's occasionally Mondays or Thursdays. But it does feel weird. It especially feels weird like you're not going on the road, like they go right back home. But might be a little good time for the ball club coming off a hot weekend, a successful weekend. Recharge going into a team that you should handle because, boy, I mean, you're right back in the cauldron starting Friday night in St. Louis. And when I say cauldron, that place, the weather this time of year, it's always hot there. Fans are really into the game. It's a great baseball city. When you go to St. Louis, and you walk around downtown on a game day, everybody's in red, and they're out there like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That week, this coming weekend series just feels like it has like big series feel to it, and the Phillies need to deliver. It's a odd 4-game series. If right now, as we sit here on our July 4th, if you told me that Phillies could go in there and go 2-2, I would probably take it. It would be great if they can go in there and go 3-1 and win that series. But yeah, definitely odd to have July 4th off. But hey, they'll be right back at it. We didn't even talk about. You asked about Logan O'Hoppe. They promoted that Griff McGarry.
That's right. Yeah, Griff McGarry, the big strikeout artist who moves up a step. What did you make of that?
That's really interesting to me. He goes from Jersey Shore to Reading, and I think he's going to pitch maybe like Wednesday night. Reading's got an odd schedule this week, so he might pitch like Wednesday night down in Richmond. But honest to God, I see this as like they're challenging him, they're gauging him for maybe help in some way down the stretch. I mean, he's working as a starter. A lot of folks think he's going to be a reliever down the road because of his unbelievable power stuff. Wipeout slider, hard four-seamer. He's had some control issues that makes it a little concern in the bullpen. But when he's on and throwing strikes, he's really tough. And you wonder if they're scratching their heads saying, "I wonder if this kid can help us in a pennant race here." And I would not. I would really take a close look at him here in Double-A. I would not be against it at all because he's an older kid. He's 23. He came out of college. I spoke to him in Clearwater. Very, very bright guy. I even heard that from scouts who had meetings with him before the draft. Really smart, bright, good head on his shoulders, mature. I think if he shows you he can handle this next jump, that he has to be something you think about for down the road. That, to me, that's sort of we've had a lot of big stories here with Harper, with Eflin, with Suarez going down. Them putting Griff McGarry into Double-A, to me, is a kind of a significant secondary story that could affect this big league club here in the next handful of weeks. We'll see.
And let's end, Jim, with a question about another young Philly, and that is Derek Hall. His first week in the big leagues. This comes from John Maloney, who says, on a previous podcast, Jim mentioned that Derek Hall could be looking for a new team to play for, given how many DH types the Phillies already have. Yeah. Now that he's in the big leagues, does that mean that he'll stick here for the foreseeable future?
Well, I don't know. I still don't know where Derek Hall's future is. Is it with another ball club? Because the Phillies still are very deep in DH types, all under contract for coming seasons. They just happen to lose one of them in Bryce Harper, and he's here to kind of help fill that void. Left-handed pop, done a great job. But, I talked about opportunity, making the most of it in terms of Falter and Sanchez. Here's a kid that is so far making the most of it. Could he elbow his way in here and be part of this team's future? Sure. They'd have to maybe make an adjustment with a move. But it's nice to have too many good players, and it's nice to have options. At the very least, other people are watching. There's a lot of money to be made overseas for power hitters. He just needs to keep improving, and now he needs to show he can hit big league pitching. He's certainly done a good job with it over the first week, but I don't think he can make a judgment on a guy over just a week. So I'm probably going to stick by my guns and say I think Derek Hall has a big league future and some paychecks coming because this game pays for power. I don't know that it's in Philadelphia because they have Hoskins, they have Castellanos, they have Harper. They just have a bunch of guys that profile as DHs. They have always the possibility of Bohm moving across the diamond. I mean, so much of this roster is going to be in flux here over the next year. But if you hit, they'll find a place for you, and if you play well, they'll find a place for you, and you'll get a shot in the big leagues. So I don't know what's going to happen, but he needs to only think of one thing: playing well and helping whatever team he's on win ball games. Right now, that's the Phillies, and they certainly have benefited from him. I'll say this personally: I've gotten to know him the last 3 or 4 spring trainings, and it's just an outstanding person. So I'm very, very happy for him. Hard worker, comes from a baseball family. Very appreciative of this opportunity. I mean, he hit hit that big home run on, was it Friday night, right? And he's running around the bases with a smile on his face. Some guys would try to stifle the smile and act cool, No, Derek Hall is here, and he just hit a home run, and he's to help win a game, and he's enjoying it, and he's gonna enjoy it, and he doesn't care who knows it, right? And then you go down to the clubhouse after the game, and you want to talk to him. He's like the star of the game, and you can't find him because he's out on the field watching the fireworks with his wife and his mother who flew in from Arizona. He's going to enjoy the whole thing. I just love that. I love that about him, and that's what it's for, to enjoy it. So keep enjoying it, and it's a great story to come up from AAA where you're doing the job. You don't know when there's going to be an opportunity or where there's going to be an opportunity in the big leagues, but to finally get one and make good on it, that's a great story. So hats off to Derek Hall. I might even eat a cheeseburger in his honor today.
Yeah, it is a good story, and it's also giving the Phillies some necessary left-handed balance in the middle of the lineup without Bryce Harper, separating Castellanos from Realmuto, Derek Hall in that 4 spot. So that's going to do it for this Phillies Talk podcast. The Phillies have 3 with the Nationals, 4 with the Cardinals, another big week ahead for a team that is 42-38, 1 game before their official midpoint of the season. So thanks a lot for listening. He's Jim Salisbury, and I'm Corey Seidman. We'll have another podcast later in the week.